On Roland Martin Unfiltered for Monday, August 12, 2019. Roland is off today. I'm Monique Presley. There are new developments in the Galveston, Texas case we told you about last week. Attorney Ben Crump wants to know why 2 Texas Rangers on horses led a black man through the streets by a rope. That's my hometown. I want to know too. American University's first black female student body president won a $725,000 judgment in her lawsuit against the owner of a neo-Nazi website and one of his followers. We'll tell you what happened. An appeals court judge rules that Mississippi's redistricting plan violates the Voting Rights Act. A huge win, but there's still a lot to be done to protect your vote. Meet the woman who wants to be Mississippi's first African-American Attorney General. Can't wait for that. Jeffrey Epstein, accused of sex trafficking, allegedly committed suicide in prison. What happens next? And how did that happen? And a Georgia Southern student athlete is arrested because a bird pooped on his car. We'll explain. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's Uncle Roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
The Galveston Police Department issued an apology last Monday after an image was posted on social media showing 2 mounted police officers, both white, leading Mr. Donald Neely, a black man, handcuffed behind their horses and attached by what looked like a rope or leash. The police department acknowledged that the incident may have, quote, unnecessarily, end quote, been embarrassing for Neely and apologized for the poor judgment of mounted officers P. Broach and A. Smith. Well, that's not good enough. Attorney Benjamin Crump wants to know why and is demanding that the police release the body cam footage. Joining me now is Attorney Crump, who is one of the attorneys representing Donald Neely. Attorney Crump, good to see you. Sorry it's under these circumstances.
It is, and Monique, I'm so happy to be talking with you because you have a unique perspective about Galveston, Texas, being that you were born in Galveston, Texas. So I want to make a plea right here on the show that we need you to come home and join us to help get justice for Donald Neely, who is a wonderful young man who's challenged by mental illness. I spent a lot of time with him today, and he comes across very childlike, and then it just makes you infuriated that these police officers would beat this young man, treat him in this manner. They beat him on previous occasions, but this time they tied him, to a rope and dragged him down the street in Galveston, Texas. And the police chief tried to say, well, it was just their policy. These are good police officers. They are of good character. And so I made a proclamation today that if they're such good police of good character, then you should have no problem being transparent and releasing the body cam video so we can see the true content of their character when we examine how they talked to and how they treated this unarmed black man who was suffering from mental illness.
Well, Ben, you and I have talked through many cases in the past few years, and I certainly am just horrified to hear of anything like this happening, not just in my hometown where I grew up, but where my parents still live to this very day, and all of my family and friends. I was just there just over a month ago, but I was sharing with you earlier today how it was just a year ago when we were celebrating Juneteenth right there in Galveston. I was the keynote for the inaugural social justice luncheon. Many people don't know Galveston, Texas is the home of Juneteenth. It was June 19th there in Galveston, Texas, that the news of the freed slaves in the South finally reached the South area, and it happened right there in Galveston, right there in front of the Ashton Villa, and I ended up reading from parts of Frederick Douglass's speech just this year while I was home. So we are all reeling from this information, and one of the things that I'm wondering, Ben, because we've been told so far that the guidelines provided for this practice, which seems to any blatant observer of humanity to be inhumane. Is it true? Have you had an opportunity to review and see that this actually was something the police were trained on?
It's so interesting, Monique. The police chief and the police department said, well, this is actual policy, so the officers were just trained in following policy. So then when we asked them, well, present the policy to us, they said, oh, it's not in writing. It's just a policy that they're taught on. And so, as a civil rights lawyer and a constitutional lawyer, Monique, I have a problem, and I know you have a problem because you're a great constitutional lawyer. Well, how you have a law and a policy, but yet it's not in writing. So how does that give notice to the public what the police can and cannot do legally? And so it's so many things about this case which seems they are trying to cover up and justify something that is unjustifiable. Because when those two white police officers on horseback marched this unarmed black man down the streets of Galveston, Texas, it was very eerie because it conjured up historical memories of slave hunters putting rope on black people and dragging them to the slave auctions.
That's right. That's right. And that's what it conjured up for so many of us, Ben. But you're asking them to do something. First, you want them to release the body cam footage. Have you gotten any response from the city as to when that will happen?
No response based on Texas Public Information Act. We gave the demand to the city police department. They have 20 business days to make a decision. They can do the right thing and show leadership and transparency and give it up, or they can punt it to the Texas Attorney General, which he will have 45 days, which means they're going to fight it and not give it to us. So what we did, we made a proclamation of our own that if they don't give that video up in 30 days, we're going to invite other civil rights activists and other mental illness advocates and other human rights advocates from all around America to come and have a great march on Washington. And we're going to march from Juneteenth inauguration site where they read the speech those many years ago, and we're going to then march right down the same street that they dragged Donald Neely down to show him that we're standing with him and that we're also demanding equal justice and treatment of not only African American and other minorities, but also and especially people who are suffering from mental illness.
Absolutely.
And we need you to be there, Monique. We need your voice.
Oh, well, Lord knows I'll do what I can, Ben. But joining me on the panel, I'm bringing in reinforcements today, is Dr. Julianne Malveaux, economist and president emerita at Bennett College, political analyst Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeaver, and Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice at the Environmental Protection Agency. Let me start with you, Dr. Malveaux. What in the world?
What in the world? As Attorney Crump has said, this is replete with history.
Yeah.
To have a black man in on rope behind horses. We've seen these pictures.
Yeah.
Unfortunately or fortunately, Monique, I've been researching 1919 lynching in terms of the economic suppression of our people. And so I've been in the Library of Congress where they threaten to put me out because I keep making mouth noises when I see some of these pictures. I'm like, ooh. Some of the pictures, but this is reminiscent of some of the pictures that I saw from a century ago.
Yeah.
What's also ironic is that in the wake of both El Paso and Dayton, 45 has talked about mental illness. Mm-hmm. But when the African American person has a mental illness, this is something that no one wants to pay attention to. These Galveston police must know that this man is mentally ill, given the number of times that he has law enforcement encounters. I think the report said 6 or 7 times he's had encounters, he's been arrested, he's been beaten. This is a young man who is not well. So the response to someone who is not well should not be to put a rope on them and drag them down the street. Let's not forget what happened in Texas not too long ago to James Byrd. So dragging down streets is something that people seem to like to do in Texas. Not to disrespect your home state or anything, because it could happen in any state.
Hey.
But the fact is that this just sent chills up my spine when I saw it. And so, Attorney Crump, I'm always grateful to you for the kind of leadership that you put out there in terms of saying, let us march. And Monique will be there. Because she's committed.
She's offering me up. See that?
I am. I kind of like that. You know, the elder here.
Sacrificial lamb, prodigal daughter.
but no, we all know how important this is. And so I thank you for your leadership and for the coalition. Because we've seen not only African Americans who experience mental illness, but also whites, disabled. There was a case here in Washington not too long ago where an autistic young man was beaten by police and then choked to death. So these things happen because these police, they don't say they haven't been trained at all. You don't have to have a whole lot of education, unfortunately. I hate to say it, but it's the truth. What kind of training do these people get?
Well, but you would be surprised by that. One of the things I know for sure from spending over a decade defending a municipality, the District of Columbia, in fact, in the Attorney General's office, is that the guidelines can say one thing and police officers can be trained according to those guidelines, but the guidelines can be so tone deaf, time deaf, can really not catch up at all with what people are saying here. They're calling optics, but of course it's beyond optics. What it really boils down to, and I want to bring you in, Mustafa, is when you're dealing with someone who may be volatile, and maybe they knew that, maybe they didn't. I don't know what kind of all of the history was with Mr. Neely. When you're dealing with someone who has mental challenges, whether it's autism or whether it's some other form of a depression or whether it's a neurological disorder, sometimes people even who have epilepsy can present as if they are being non-compliant and unfortunately end up arrested, end up harmed, end up dead, because if officers aren't trained not just in how to detain somebody, but trained in how to handle it when someone has mental capacity issues, then we end up right where we are, right, Mustafa?
Yeah, definitely. But we should also call out the fact that in Galveston they have police cars. And if someone has been apprehended, they could very easily place that individual in a police car. If they felt that there was a psychological issue that was going on, they could call in the EMTs, and then they could take them and get them evaluated. You don't walk them down the street. What this is, there's a psychological component to it, but it's a little different than we're talking about. Yes, with the gentleman, we have to make sure that there's the evaluation of him. But this is about sending a message to the community that's usually the one that's being disproportionately enforced upon, that we have power. And to the other community who usually is less, enforced upon, that this power that we have looks like you and me, and that we will utilize it to control and to herd these individuals that we see as less than human. Because if they actually saw this gentleman as human, there would be a different set of actions. I've worked with enforcement personnel over the years, and I know when somebody is actually following the right protocol in a situation, and when someone is ad-libbing and bringing other things into the mix to send a message out to let folks know, if you mess up, we're going to embarrass you, we're going to treat you as less than human.
This is the parallel to 1919. This is when lynching and all the things occurred those years back. It was done not only to punish the supposed perpetrator who may have done something, because a lot of times they did it, but also to send to the community a signal. You better watch out. It's almost like my grandmother used to call the tall nail syndrome, where the tall nail is always beaten down. So some brothers were lynched because they bought a car, or because they became postmaster, or because they were uppity. Now, this gentleman was embarrassed in his community, demeaned and humiliated, and it's sending the same kind of signal. I mean, your point about who does what and how is so important. So these police officers really, frankly, need to be fired. I know it's not going to happen, but Attorney Crump, if you're still here, you get
right. No, he's still here, but I want to bring in Avis. Avis, do you have a question for Attorney Crump, or just a comment?
Well, first of all, just a comment. I kind of want to sort of piggyback on what Mustafa was saying. I think he hit the nail right on the head. This is a function of dehumanization, really. That's really what this is. They did not see this gentleman as a human being, and they felt that it was then appropriate to have him led by a rope via their horses in that way, as if he was some sort of chattel. I mean, this really does harken back to chattel slavery. And so, as Attorney Crump moves forward with sort of calling them out on this and making them prove whatever policy they supposedly have, and making them produce whatever video evidence that they have, I'm wondering, too, is he considering any sort of damages that might be available to this gentleman for having his rights, I believe, his human rights, attacked in such a public and humiliating way?
What say you, Attorney Crump? Where's the lawsuit?
Well, certainly we're going to explore all the legal remedies available to Mr. Donald Neely, but we want to get him help. I mean, spending time with him, he needs to have medical assistance, and so we're going to do everything legally. And in fact, we know this body cam video, at least we believe, I should say, that it has nothing good to justify what these officers did, because had it had something that showed their good character, we would have seen it already. So we know they probably used derogatory and possibly racial derogatory language on that body cam video. That's why they're not releasing it. Attorney Melissa Morris and Attorney, hopefully, Monique Presley, and Attorney Jeff Daniel Clark we're working to file a federal civil rights lawsuit, as well as a lawsuit based on the American Disabilities Act.
Yeah.
And the reason we want to do that is because, as Dr. Malvo stated, he had been arrested 6 times in the last year and a half. They knew exactly who Donald Neely was. They knew he had mental health issues. And knowing that in Texas, after the tragic killing of Sandra Bland, there's the Sandra Bland Act that says when you have a person who exhibits mental illness, a mental illness crisis, and or has a mental illness, you can only keep them in a jail for 12 hours, and then you must take them to a psychological ward to be evaluated, where they kept him about 22 hours, and then when they let him out, they just let him out on the side of the hospital. Now, a person who is suffering from paranoid schizophrenia and is bipolar, you let them out on the side of a hospital and they're already homeless. Do you really believe they're going to go check themselves into the hospital, or they're going to get back on the streets? And so we know that they realized that somebody had this on video and that it started going viral, and they just cut him loose. And we don't believe they're going to charge him, because they initially charged him. But if they did that, Monique Presley, you know, in discovery, they would have to give us the body cam video.
Immediately. But here's the thing, Ben, and I'm going to move on, but sometimes people don't realize that these issues many times aren't black and white. There are blue and whoever else against the blue, because in this case, we've got a chief of police who's black, right? And we've got council members. I know there are good and rational people in there, because one of the council members is my classmate. We graduated from high school together. So I'm not going to give up on my hometown. I'm about to make some calls tonight. I sure am. I don't like anything I hear, but I'm talking to him right now, and I'm going to send the link. Come on, Galveston. I believe in you. Get it together. You don't want this thunder. Ben Crump is talking about ruckus on behalf of Mr. Neely.
Galveston, and Bishop Dixon from Houston said he's going to get at least 10,000 black folks to come and march in your small hometown.
Oh, help us, Lord.
Suck it now.
Okay, well, Attorney Crump, I'll be talking to you. Please wish Mr. Neely our best. We are praying for him and hoping that justice is done in this case. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, and we need you to come and lead the march, Monique.
Bye, Ben.
She'll be there.
Bye. Okay, on to the next one. The Lawyers Committee on Civil Rights Under Law had 2 major victories recently. Yes, one involving Taylor Dumpson, the American University student who was trolled by neo-Nazis, and the other involving redistricting in Mississippi. Roland talked to Kristen Clark, President and Executive Director of the National Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, about both cases this morning on the Tom Joyner Morning Show.
Speaking of folks who are fighting the good fight and going after those who stand in the way of black folks, Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. There are a lot of civil rights organizations. There are civil rights groups out there, law groups out there who are doing fantastic work. And I fundamentally believe the Lawyers Committee does not get enough credit. Tom, just recently, they represented a black woman, a.k.a. a student at American University who was the president, and these racists went after her, trolled her, targeted her. Well, guess what? They just got a $750,000 judgment against this neo-Nazi. They have been doing some great work. Joining us right now is the leader, Kristen Clark, of the Lawyers Committee. And Kristen, this case, we all remember this case because this young lady was a student, and it was just unbelievable what they were doing to Taylor Dumpson. And you all represented her, and now all of a sudden she was the first black woman president in school history at American University, and now you all have set these neo-Nazis in their place.
We have, and you know, the troll campaign, the racist troll campaign that was unleashed on her was led by a group called the Daily Stormer, one of the worst neo-Nazi groups out there. And they started this campaign the day after her inauguration. They hung nooses from campus. They hung banana peels with the words Harambe Bait inscribed on them and the name of her sorority. And most importantly, they instructed their followers to go after her. They doxed her, meaning they published her contact information and social media profile. They would tell people where she would be on campus, and a doctor diagnosed her with post-traumatic stress disorder. She suffered from anxiety, depression. She suffered severe weight loss. Her grades suffered. She was afraid to walk around on campus, all because of the activity of the Daily Stormer and its publisher. And so we sued the Daily Stormer. We brought a federal court case, and we won on Friday. And it's a groundbreaking victory because it's the first time in which a federal court has ruled that online troll activity is the kind of activity that can violate our public accommodations laws. You might remember that our public accommodation laws came about during the heyday of the civil rights movement, or when black people were denied the right to sit at lunch counters and to go to certain hotels. Well, American University, where she attended, is basically a public accommodation. And for the first time, a judge has ruled that online racist trolling violated her right to equally enjoy her campus like everybody else. And so we think we've broken new ground here that opens up a new path for tearing down white supremacists all across our country.
Did you also just recently win a case down in Mississippi for black voters?
We have. So in Mississippi, lawmakers drew a district, Senate District 22, which is in a rural part of the state, in a way that would lock out black voters and make it impossible for them to unseat a longstanding white incumbent. The district had 50.8% black voting age population, but it was very easy to put that district at a level that would have given black voters a fair opportunity to elect. We won at the district court level, but then the state appealed up to the Fifth Circuit, which tends to be a pretty hostile circuit when it comes to civil rights cases. But the facts were so bad in this case, and our case was so righteous that the Fifth Circuit agreed with us and rejected the state's appeal. And so it is a really important victory. It shows, we talk a lot about partisan gerrymandering, but we've got to remember that race remains a real problem in 2019. And so that's why we are filing these kinds of Voting Rights Act cases all across the country. That's why we're going to be fighting for fair maps in 2020. Black voters deserve a fair opportunity to elect candidates of their choice.
And Christian, look, there are a lot of people talk about taking to the streets. We talk about protesting. We know the history of Thurgood Marshall, NAACP Legal Defense Fund. But the reality is, when you talk about who are also warriors in this fight, it's the lawyers who are going to court, who are using the law as a shield to beat down racism. We're seeing this fight continue, and so people have to understand why they also must support the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, because bottom line is you got to win in the courts as well.
That's right, and I like filing lawsuits against people who violate black people's civil rights. We do it all day, every day, and we're winning a lot of our cases. So I hope people out there will support black-led civil rights legal organizations that are all about fighting back against racism and the hate crimes that are out there and the rise in white supremacy, fighting for our voting rights. And you can visit our website at www.lawyerscommittee.org and hit that donate button. Stand up for the work of black-led civil rights organizations.
Kristen Clark, I also think that what you're doing is so admirable, and so much so that tell us what Taylor is doing now.
She is in law school, and she is fighting, hopes to fight for social justice alongside us one day.
That is awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Keep fighting the good fight. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Jennifer Riley Collins is running for Attorney General as a Democrat in Mississippi's 2019 statewide election. She is the first black woman ever to be nominated to Attorney General in Mississippi. She joins me now to talk about the race and what her plans are for Mississippi. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so very much. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we just heard a good bit. I don't know if you could hear about it, but there have been some significant victories for the Lawyers Committee in terms of the way that redistricting is being handled and the way that other civil rights matters are being handled in the state that's about to be yours to handle. What is your take on what needs to be done going forward in terms of Mississippi and redistricting or other civil rights cases?
So first of all, I want to say thank you to the Lawyers Committee. They have been partners in the state of Mississippi alongside of great organizations like Mississippi Center for Justice, Southern Poverty, and the ACLU, which I formerly headed for a number of years. And so we appreciate their diligence in ensuring that one man, one vote is the way that we are going. Mississippi is the state, as we all know, historically, that has challenged the right of African Americans to be able to cast their ballot. You know, we've dealt with issues of poll tax and literacy tests. And so we think we still have a ways to go. But having these victories like the Lawyers Committee has just had, and having other victories ahead of us, I pray, Mississippi will move forward.
Well, and can you explain, because I know that there may be some people watching who are wondering, what is the difference between what an attorney general does and what a district attorney does and what the responsibilities are in that role? Because I really want those watching to understand just how big of a deal it is, what is about to happen, and we are so thankful that you are going to be in that position.
Well, I look forward to being in that position. The Attorney General is the chief legal officer for the state. We are the legal representative for the people of the state. The district attorney here in Mississippi, we have 22 districts, circuit court districts, and district attorneys deal only with criminal matters that come before the court, felony matters, that is. And so when they work at the county level here in Mississippi, the Attorney General's office, even though the Attorney General is referred to as the state's top cop, that is only one aspect of what the Attorney General is responsible for. The Attorney General is responsible for making sure that the law applies to all of the state's citizens. I will tell you, I am the only candidate in this race that is committed to doing that in the state of Mississippi.
And we really need someone who has your experience, your sensibilities, your view of what it means for justice to be applied equally. Sometimes people don't understand how important it is to have persons of color, black folks and women in these roles. So what is it that you hope to be able to accomplish should you take on the office?
So we, of course, want to make sure the law is evenly applied to all Mississippians. Mississippi is a very diverse state. From whether you identify as black, white, or another race or ethnicity, whether you identify as gay or straight. We are a diverse state, and it is important that the law protect all Mississippians. In Mississippi, we lead the nation when it comes to issues of healthcare disparity. As the Attorney General, I will make sure that we are advancing, making sure that people are taken care of. I will join with other Democratic Attorney Generals across this nation who have pushed back against issues regarding the ACA. In Mississippi, where we need health care, we have to have someone who will go and fight. When we talk about the opioid crisis and how the opioid crisis has how manufacturers have targeted communities in Mississippi, communities where there is no easy access to health care. We have to make sure that we have someone, who will be me, who will stand up to corporations and say, you're not going to prey upon people in our state. Being a black woman, being a mother, a veteran, I understand and bring to the table perspectives that are otherwise will not be represented. And so I think that is the importance of electing me and making sure that I'm at the table. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Shirley Chisholm said 51 years ago that if they don't give you a seat at the table, then bring a folding chair. I say in 2019 that it's time for us to take the seat that is already at the table.
Well, that's
because
right.
Our voice matters.
That is right, and we certainly agree with you. Attorney Riley Collins, thank you so much for joining us on the show, and we will be following this closely and rooting for you. We wish you every success.
If I may say, please, if you'd love to check out our website, Jennifer 4AG, to learn more about our campaign. Thank you so very much for having me on today.
Thank you. Jeffrey Epstein, in jail, waiting for his sex trafficking trial, allegedly committed suicide over the weekend. There are a number of questions surrounding his death and what happens to his victims now. Let me start here. I don't know if people really get how improbable, borderline impossible it is for that to have gone down the way the story is saying it went down right now, at that kind of facility with that kind of prisoner.
Well, Barr is now saying that there was inadequate security in that time period. But you know what? When we look at the names of people who are mentioned, the man who lives in the house that enslaved people built, you know, also known as the White House, but the house that he was projecting when he said maybe Bill Clinton had something to do with this. The fact is that his name is in that file, too. So this does seem highly improbable. It also seems the height of chicanery. And my hope and prayer is that these many victims of this man will get justice, and that their justice will involve not only the indictment, if not conviction, of the woman who was his co-conspirator, who seemed to be his procurer, but also that they're able to get some kind of wholeness, some kind of he's leaving this multi-billion-dollar estate. Well, heck, divide it up between these women and make sure that they're able to get the kind of help and some of the other things that they need. This, you know, when I Saturday morning, I thought that I was in the Twilight Zone or something. I said, this didn't happen.
Right.
You know, and then you have the conspiracy theorists and the others. But the most important thing, Monique, is that the former Secretary of Labor, who was the Attorney General in Florida at the time, cut this dude a deal that let him spend 13 months on work release in his own office, where there is evidence that he wasn't working, he was just chilling, but 13 months for multiple counts of sexual abuse. And that, blessedly, the feds did step in to do more, but this really speaks to the contempt for women, the contempt for women that our law has to say that it's okay. I just need to do one more thing, because I was hoping the panel could get in on our Mississippi girl.
We're trying to move on.
We're trying to move on. I went to school in Jackson County, Mississippi, a bazillion years ago after I got put out of a bunch of schools in San Francisco. I am so excited about her. That's all I want to say.
Yep.
I am just so excited about her. Mississippi truly needs her. But back to Epstein, you know what? We need to find out who killed him, because he didn't kill himself.
Well, and here's the thing, Mustafa. People sometimes act like they understand privilege and white privilege and men with a whole bunch of $1 billion, and then sometimes conveniently they don't. In my mind, there's no reason, based on how he had skated through the system thus far, for him to not be cautiously optimistic about it the way it was going to go this time. The first suicide attempt didn't make any sense to me. This didn't make any sense to me. People are saying they were talking to him and he was in good spirits. What gives?
Yeah, because so he was with his attorneys until, I believe, 6 or 6:30 the night before he passed away.
Okay.
Let me be real clear. We probably don't have a lot of faith in Attorney General Barr to make sure that this process moves in a transparent way, and that the letter of the law is followed. But we'll see, okay? So let's deal with facts instead of conspiracy theory for the moment. So fact is that they were supposed to be checking in every 30 minutes. Some have said every 15 minutes. Fact is that he was one of the highest profile folks who was, you know, being held across the country. So you would think that if you have a high-profile individual that, let's say that a few weeks ago that he did try and commit suicide, that you would make sure that you're keeping an eye on this individual because a number of other high-profile folks are connected with this person.
That's right.
Folks weren't going around and doing what they were supposed to. Cameras, you know, were not capturing things that were supposed to be going
Too many
on.
coincidences.
So
right?
we're not going to get into a scandal moment. Maybe Olivia Pope will come.
Oh, but we're walking through a scandal moment. I mean, it's just very obvious to me that there is more to this story. Avis, what do you think?
Yeah. Something got handled, that's for sure.
Something did.
Because, as was mentioned, it's just too many coincidences here for this to really be a coincidence, okay? When, as was mentioned, a specific camera that is supposed to have his cell in view is not working, but other cameras are, right? When he is supposed to be checked on every few minutes, at least once or twice every 30 minutes, and that's not happening anymore. First of all, how in the world did he get off of Suicide Watch if he was just on Suicide Watch? I mean, how was that decision even made in the first place?
Yeah.
The bottom line is he had a lot of very, very powerful people that he was in a position to take down. And so this creates a situation where when you have all of these other coincidences and you at the same time have the reality that he has information on a number of very high profile people all the way up to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, it does make me wonder if what is being told to the public at this moment is the truth. And it also makes me very suspicious about whether or not we'll ever hear the truth, specifically coming from this Justice Department, when we know that Attorney General Barr is nothing more than President Trump's lackey.
Right. Well, I don't know if we're ever going to hear the end of this or the truth on this or anything that even circles around the truth on this. I know from my own experience in the government, at this point in one of these cases, I was knowing way more than what we're hearing right now. So, I guess we'll just have to keep everybody posted.
Somebody needs a post-reward for the guard. See, somebody dropped a dime on somebody or moved something on somebody. I'm not doing conspiracy theory.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Oh, no.
So, you know.
But if that happened, they are so paid.
Right.
Yeah, but maybe somebody could offer a few more pennies. Yeah. Maybe somebody, I mean, you know, I don't know. These rich folks move their money around like that. I'm just saying, this is something where we do need to get to the bottom of, because it really does reek to the highest level in terms of corruption, in terms of malfeasance, in terms of any number of other things.
Well, and again, we try on this show to relate it to what matters for people in our community. What you need to understand is we are the most over-incarcerating country in the land, and when we have brothers who are in there, this is not what happens. I mean, this is not the way the treatment is. I wouldn't put it past him being able to convince somebody in there to let him get out quick. I don't know what the story is, but whatever it is, there had to be so many different failures along the way for this to happen. It's not just one night guard who didn't do his job.
Right. You know, but Monique, the other piece of this for me is there have been so many cases in the past decade at least, and certainly we were on Mississippi, a couple within the last 20 years in Mississippi, where brothers who were not in bad spirits, who were not suicidal, suddenly hung themselves with the shoelaces can't hang you, and no investigations, no things like that. So the suicide piece is also one we want to look into.
Yeah.
I still haven't gotten over Sandra Bland, and I still believe that there's something else going on there that, again, where are the cameras, where are these kinds of things? So the suicide piece is a piece that really does talk to folks getting rid of folks.
Yeah.
Because they have too much to say. Sandra Bland had too much to say.
That's right.
She had too much to say. I'm just not convinced that young sister, on her way to a new job, even with a setback, killed herself. I'm not convinced of it.
Right, but even if she was even if she did, and it was because the circumstances were such that she was not protected, that still is the fault of law enforcement, who have an obligation not just to keep people so that they can do their time, but to keep people safe in our prison system.
Yeah, and let's just not take the spotlight off of the fact that we've got 4 million folks who are part of sex trafficking, you know, and we've got 500,000 young kids under 18 years old who also go through that. So now that he's no longer the center of attention, let's still make sure that we keep the spotlight on folks who are being abused, and many of those are unfortunately women of color who are going through these situations.
Absolutely, absolutely. We are going to take a break, and then we'll be right back.
You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it.
You've heard Roland talk a lot about marijuanastock.org because he wants to keep you informed of investment opportunities that make sense. We have all watched the growth of the cannabis industry. A recent report by New Frontier Data estimates the global cannabis market at over $340 billion. That's with a B, y'all. We know that marijuana legalization is sweeping the country state by state. We also know that marijuana has a good cousin, the hemp plant, with a much higher concentration of CBD. That means hemp gives you all of the medical benefits of marijuana without getting you high. Until recently, hemp farming was practically illegal in the United States and heavily regulated by the DEA. However, the 2018 Farm Bill recently passed in Congress, making it legal to grow hemp CBD in the United States and creating one of the largest commodities worldwide. And they need land to grow all of the plants. This is not rocket science. It's just an incredible investment opportunity, and that's why our good friends at 420 Real Estate come in. Their business model is simple. They buy land that supports hemp CBD, grow operations, and lease it to licensed, high-paying tenants. That's right. They are hemp CBD landlords, and you can get in on the action. The folks at 420 Real Estate decided to do something special for the Roland Martin family. Originally, the minimum investment level was $500. Right now, you can invest in this crowdfunding campaign for as little as $200. That's right, $200 up to $10,000. Let me recap. This is a $340 billion industry that is still growing, and you can participate with as little as $200 to invest. To invest, go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org. Get in the game, y'all. Do it now. Life Lux Jazz is the experience of a lifetime, delivering top-notch music in an upscale destination. The weekend-long event is held at the Omnia Day Club Los Cabos, which is nestled on the Sea of Cortez. Ooh, I'm going. In the celebrity playground of Los Cabos, Mexico. The Life Lux Jazz experience offers the ultimate getaway for discerning jazz aficionados by pairing an upscale international destination with luxury accommodations, fine haute cuisine, top-shelf libations, breathtaking golf, exhilarating spa health and wellness options, and much, much more, while showcasing some of the biggest names in entertainment. The second annual Life Lux Jazz Experience continues to build upon its success and heritage with Jazzing Around Los Cabos, a celebrity expansion of accomplishing its goals of sharing all the finest the destination has to offer, including daytime excursions and mini concerts, including the Spirit of Jazz Gospel Brunch and Jazz Sunset Cruise. Confirmed guests are comedian actor Mark Curry with Gerald Albright, Alex Bugman, ooh, I can't say that one, Raul Mendon. Okay, they're spelling it out for me, but I'm still messing it up, y'all. Incognito, Pieces of a Dream, Kirk Whalum, Average White Band, Donnie McClurkin, Shalia, Roy Ayers, Tom Brown, Ronnie Laws, and Ernest Quarles. For more information, visit the website at lifeluxjazz.com That's lifeluxjazz.com. So, for the strangest of strange arrests of a Georgia Southern quarterback, Shai Werts, is that right? Shai Werts has gotten stranger after body cam footage of the incident was revealed.
You can see it on the windshield. That's not bird poop. I swear to God, that's bird doo-doo. That's not bird poop. I swear to God. That's a lot of shit, man. I tried to clean it last night at the gas station. I can still wipe it off.
Werts was charged with cocaine possession and speeding in County, South Carolina on July 31st, which led to him being arrested. It was later determined that the substance the police scraped off the top of his car was not drugs at all, but bird poop. Werts had been suspended by the team on August 2nd, but was reinstated 2 days later once the drug charge was dropped. Now, see, we giggle, but that brother could have been dead.
You know?
He could have been dead, Dr. J.
No,
that's exactly the way it goes down.
But when you use the words police and intelligence, they probably shouldn't be used in the same sentence, at least not in this case. You couldn't smell the bird do, but his coach, I think, said something about him that was really important and that we have to just lift up, which is his composure and demeanor during this incident was commendable. A lot of people, I probably would have been cursing, angry. What you mean, cocaine? So he really did. That young man, and he's a young man, college senior, comported himself wonderfully. But as you say, number one, he could have been dead. Yeah. Number two, his academic career could have been ended if they just asserted that it was bird poo and never chose to test it. Yeah. They could have gone to court, as you know, and goes to court, but they find out it's bird poo, but meanwhile, back at the ranch, he's lost a semester. Yeah. And so the consequences of police stupidity, especially for black and brown men and women, but men more so than women, the consequences are stupendous. Yeah. And we really, so, you know, I am appealing to police chiefs and others, get your folks some training, get your folks some sense. I mean, you can't buy sense in a Cracker Jack box, but there's some places you can get it from. These folks need some training. That could have been handled so differently. Right, but it's not just stupidity to me, Avis. You know, a lot of these things I see in terms of intentionality, and no, just as Dr. Julian just finished saying, it could have gone a different way but for his demeanor. But these are circumstances where we would have righteous indignation and just cannot afford to.
I was just hoping and wishing and had my fingers together saying, please ask him to taste it. Ask him to taste it and then figure out if it's cocaine. I would have just gotten some very petty pleasure out of that. But, you know, the bottom line is, it is a serious situation when you have individuals who have all this power that they have with a badge, but they don't have the intelligence that's necessary to go with it. And also, many of them have, I believe, quite frankly, a bit of a power trip that they find themselves on, where they just want to assert their authority, whether or not what they're doing is right. And at any given moment, you're exactly right. It can escalate out of control and someone can end up dead. Yeah. And we know that's more likely to happen to black men than it's likely to happen to others. And so thank God this young man survived this encounter, but I certainly would have gotten some pleasure had that cop eaten some bird poop.
Right. The other thing we don't think about, Mustafa, is he could have been doing something else wrong, and they would have used this unjustified circumstance and this non-so-called drug that they found, and then what if he's got some weed? You know, what if there's something else that he's not supposed to have? That would have been then a legal stop. I mean, people don't get how police use things that they sometimes know full well are not accurate as pretext to stop and search and frisk and detain and arrest men of color. I mean, that is what we see every single day.
And that's why you have to know your rights, and you have to stand your ground in the sense of knowing what your rights are.
No, you don't, Mustafa, but I mean, come on, I'll listen to you.
No,
I go
well,
back and forth with my bros about this all the time.
Well, what I mean by that is that, you know, if they want to search your car, then you can tell them that they need to go and get the warrant that's necessary for them to get it. And I understand that there are dynamics that play out in that situation. But here's what one of the additional things that we should be focused on. If this was a white gentleman who was driving that car, would they have made the assumption that it was cocaine? Nobody's ever seen a movie where a cocaine dealer had cocaine, you know, polishing it on his car, or any of the other dynamics that go on in that space. They did this because it was a young man of color, and they made the assumption that it could possibly be that substance. And that was going on there. And as the sister said, this is about power. We talk about power all the time, how it plays out, and we have to be very focused on that. But there's another folks who also should have probably taken a moment, and that is the school. So if they went ahead and were going to, and luckily they reinstated him, but they jumped to the conclusion that he must be guilty instead of saying, let's wait until the investigation is completed, and then we will make a decision about what we're going to do.
Right, and I think it was Dr. Avis who was saying in the last story, when we're not being seen as human, because that's the training that's needed. It's not police training exclusively, it's sensitivity training. It's really humanity training. When you were dealing with black and brown, you have to see a person, not a threat, a person. But all right, we'll keep you posted on that one, y'all. Thank God we're getting to what seems like a good ending. One of the most popular days at Essence Festival was Sunday, when they take us to church. Roland had an opportunity to talk with gospel artist Donnie McClurkin about the role faith plays in the black community. Here it is.
All right, folks, here with Donnie McClurkin. Donnie, 25th Annual Essence Festival.
It's wonderful. So far, I am having a ball. Between all of the different speakers and all different courses and classes, this has been really a landmark year, 25 years.
And you were supposed to be a host in this. Yeah. You got a little carried away.
Yeah, a little. You can't do this on a Sunday with me, because this is my day. And I just brought what I do in church on Sunday to the Essence stage.
Well, it's always great. First of all, this is probably the most packed it's been last 3 days, and so this is always really, people love the other panel and stuff, but this is really the highlight of the Power stage every year.
Yeah, the Sunday has always been a time where we worship, and you can't have black women gather together without worship, because they're key to the whole church scene. So the faith and the true love of God is exemplified on these Sunday mornings, and they come and pack the place in. If you look, the overflow is almost as filled as the main area in the convention center. This is what we do.
And one of the things that when you talk about the church, I mean, we're now operating in a whole new world in 2019. We're seeing church used to have the large buildings, now smaller buildings. Social media and also live streaming has also changed it as well.
And the digital age has made church a different entity, because now people can sit at home and watch the live stream, but it also expands our fingerprint, because now globally people are watching, like my service on Sundays, people are watching from Australia, people are watching from Africa, people are watching from the islands, and although the congregation in the sanctuary is smaller, the congregation across the world is larger. And if you're wise enough, you know how to maximize the digital change and present the gospel in more of a global sense.
And these are also people who also financially support, even on the digital side.
Yes, they literally sow into our ministry by our text to give. And there's so many different aspects that have made this a much more advantageous and a much more beneficial church. It allows people that believe in your ministry, that couldn't ever get to your church before, to now sow into it and make sure that it continues to go around the world.
Well, that's why I try to explain to people how digital has changed, even for what I do. You know, when I launched the digital platform, I had a fan base in Canada, in the UK, in the Caribbean, in Africa, who before couldn't see me on TV One because it wasn't there. Now they get to see what I do, and then we stream it multiple times, so it's not just one time and you miss it, that's it.
Right. And that's the key. Now, those that could not get the information, the education, the inspiration that you gave on one specific network, now they can tune in, punch in, they can tap in from around the world and see what's going on, put their finger on the pulse of what's going on in America, and you have a global view that gives us more understanding. I told you earlier, I need your education. I need everything that you have, because in this day, this like no other day, without going into politics, like no other day, I need to know from somebody who's enlightened how to approach this thing, because I've got people that I lead, not just in the congregation, but on every stage that I go to. And we are in a difficult time, and we need to know the mechanics of what's going on.
Well, and that's absolutely important. I think what you're also seeing is you are seeing pastors today who obviously who have to think differently than in previous generations, because the congregation also demanding more in terms of, I mean, I keep saying, you look at what people, Maxine Waters, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, 81 years old, and a whole new generation calls her Auntie Maxine. So they are attracted not because she's a millennial, but because of her message, speaking truth.
Yeah, because you've got all of these Gen X's and iGens and millennials that are coming up. We're leaving them with this. And they have to know how this goes, and they have to know what to do. I was thinking this morning, every generation needs elders. No generation can make it without elders. And the elders have got to impart the wisdom that will give the next generations the instructions, the information, the power, the strength, the wisdom to go forward. Maxine Waters, yourself, and those like you, you keep us informed to the point where ignorance is not acceptable. The generations, in order to navigate through what's going on now, need us more than ever before. Yeah.
Man, always good to see you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you. You are my go-to source. You are my go-to.
I appreciate it, baby. Thanks a bunch. Appreciate it.
Well, that concludes another episode of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I want to give a special thank you to our panel, the lovely and always brilliant Dr. Julianne Malveaux, Mr. Mustafa Santiago Ali. Did I get it all correct? Yes, this is our first time meeting. And are you still there with us, Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeaver?
Still here.
Thanks, everyone, for being with us, and I hope you really got some news you could use from today's show. Be sure to tune in again tomorrow when Roland will be back in this hot seat with a conversation about the Rich Paul rule and whether it discriminates against black athletes. If you like what you see here and you want to keep it going, you can support us by going to RolandSMartin.com. Until next time, I'm Monique Presley. Y'all want to say holla?
Holla!
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.
This is Diala Riddle, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay woke. This is Director X, the director of Superfly on the red carpet, or the black carpet, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Yo, what up, y'all? This is Jay Ellis, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hi, I'm Chaley Rose, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
I'm Lex Scott Davis, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered, the blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.
This is Diala Riddle, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay woke.
This is Director X, the director of Superfly on the red carpet, or the black carpet, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Yo, what up, y'all? This is Jay Ellis, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hi, I'm Chaley Rose, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
I'm Lex Scott Davis, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
Hey Hey, fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered, the blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play.